What is going on, guys? This is Jake at That Fit Friend, and today we're going to be doing a dynamite cross-training shoe comparison. So we're going to be looking at the R.A.D. and comparing it to the MVMNT Haze trainer. Both of these models are arguably two of the best well-rounded shoes on the market right now for CrossFit and cross-training. Normally I'll rock my Easy trainers, but I felt like for this video, we'll bust out the new colorway from Strike. Now, before we go any further, I will say everything is timestamped down below, so jump around the video, get the info you need, and then get out of here and go train. And then also, I do have individual written reviews on both of these models and a comparison article down in the description below. But now, let's dive into our first topic. So our first category is which shoe is better for CrossFit. So what I'll say is that both of these shoes I think will work for a majority of lifters and athletes, but I'll cover a couple highlights of each model and then contextualize how each one fits so you can then figure out which model would be best for the context of your wants and needs in your cross-training shoes. So 3 reasons why the R.A.D. can be a phenomenal shoe for CrossFit. Number 1, the shoe has a swell foam midsole, which is R.A.D.'s proprietary midsole construction, and I think that midsole does a really good job at walking that line between being stable under your heaviest lifts, but then also versatile enough to where you get a nice level of ground feedback with the shoe and you don't feel beat up after doing box jumps, ballistic movements, plyometrics, etc. The second reason is that the outsole provides ample grip on different surfaces, but then also wraps over that midsole throughout the entirety of the shoe. This is great for durability purposes, but then also if you are somebody who uses your feet a lot in rope climbs, you get a lot of assistance with this model. The third reason is the upper construction is pretty dang abrasion resistant and durable across the board for the demands of CrossFit workouts. Now, the Haze trainer, 3 reasons why these can be phenomenal for CrossFit. Number 1, the Cush 50 midsole, which is Strike Movement's midsole construction that they apply to the Haze trainer, provides again a nice blend of stability and versatility. Like, these shoes have some of the best midsole constructions in the game right now, in my opinion, but that Cush 50 midsole does a really good job at giving you enough stability under your heaviest lifts, but then also being like reactive and giving you a nice level of maneuverability throughout. I also like the S2 last that Strike Movement uses in this model. It gives the toe box a slightly wider width, a more anatomical fit, and then I also like the cross-platform outsole used in this shoe. It's very maneuverable, provides a nice amount of traction, and overall this shoe gives you a lot of ground feedback with different realms of training. Now, which should you go with? I think if you like having a shoe that has a slightly more minimalist feel to it, it's super maneuverable, it gives you a lot of ground feedback, then the Strike Movement Haze trainer could be a good model to look into. And then conversely, if you like having a slightly thicker midsole and like having more of like a traditional training shoe feel and fit, then the R.A.D. would be awesome for you. Both of these shoes, again, are super solid. And like, I don't think I can outright say like, oh, this one's always better than that one, because the subtle nuances between each shoe make each really great for certain contexts and preferences. All right, so now let's discuss which shoe is better for lifting. And similar to CrossFit, both of these shoes are exceptionally great shoes for lifting. And I don't think you can go wrong with really either model. Like, they're both plenty stable. They don't have that bad of toe springs, so you can really ground your feet in these shoes when training with all the different exercises you can throw at them. But a couple of differences between them to note include, number 1, their heel to toe drops. So in the R.A.D. we have a 6mm heel to toe drop, and in the Haze trainer we have a 4mm drop. If you have a preferred heel to toe drop that you like to train with, or if you've been wearing like a consistent cross training shoe for multiple years that has a specific drop, then that could help suggest which model would be best for you, because that shoe is probably going to feel a little bit more natural with its fit because it's what you've been used to in regard to the heel to toe drop. The second difference is their forefoot width. So in the Haze trainer, we have a tiny bit more width, especially towards the end of the forefoot up here. We have a little bit more of like an anatomical fit. So if you do have a slightly wider foot, you might find that the Haze trainer is a little bit more comfortable for your lifting needs. And then the third difference is that in the Haze trainer, I do think you get a little bit more maneuverability with your training over the R.A.D. And that's not to say that the R.A.D. limits your mobility at all or limits how much you can really ground the foot or move the foot. It's just in the Haze trainer, I think the midsole and outsole do a slightly better job at giving you a little bit more articulation in different exercises. And a good example here, and this is something I thought I would never say, is that this is my favorite shoe for lunging. Like, doing barbell lunges, doing any form of lunge or split squat variation, the Haze trainer has been like my favorite shoe, and I never thought I'd have a favorite like unilateral leg day shoe. But with how maneuverable this toe box and shoe is, and with how much ground feedback you get, I do actually notice a difference in regard to just how the shoe interacts with the ground. So I do prefer the Haze trainer for that style of training. But that being said, which shoe is better for lifting, I really don't think you can go wrong with either shoe. What I would suggest is that look at the current cross-training shoe you have now, pick out what you like most about that shoe, and then cross-reference how these shoes perform and the differences between them, and then try to match like, okay, which model would be best for what I'm used to and what I prefer. Our final performance category is which shoe is better for versatile training. So tackling agility work, tackling HIIT workouts, tackling plyometrics, tackling classes, whatever you're gonna be throwing at these shoes in regard to like plyometrics, multi-directional activities, which is better? So a couple of differences between them, because they both perform pretty good in this context, is number one, the outsole traction. So I do think the R.A.D. takes a slight edge in regard to outdoor training, especially if you're doing a lot of cutting or multi-directional work. The Haze trainer provides you with ample grip, but with this full outsole wrap, I do think you're gonna get a little bit more long-term durability if you're training on concrete and asphalt outdoors, especially in a more versatile way with the R.A.D. The second difference is, once again, that toe box and maneuverability is factoring in here. So in the Haze trainer, you're gonna get a little bit more maneuverability up here in the forefoot, and I know I've already hit on that in this video, but you also get a little bit more width and a slightly more like low to the ground feeling. So if you prefer that for your versatile training workouts, the Haze trainer would be a good option to look into. I almost like mentally put them into a category that's like almost like a bridge between like a barefoot shoe and like a very like thick midsole training shoe. Like this shoe does a good job at walking that middle ground there. The R.A.D. provides you with a nice level of maneuverability, but it doesn't have that same width up in the toe box. Granted, like if you have a narrow or neutral foot, I don't think the shoe is going to feel limiting at all, but it is something to note nonetheless. The third difference is that if you like having a little bit more midfoot support or arch support, I do think the R.A.D. might be a better call for you. It provides you with a slightly like beefier wall here on the medial midfoot versus the Haze trainer, but I don't think that's going to be a huge issue for a lot of folks, and that's very specific in nature. So that being said, which model is better for versatile training? If you are in the gym, I think both of these shoes are pretty dang comparable. If you're going outdoors, the R.A.D. might have a slight edge for long-term durability just because it does have that slightly thicker rubber wrap throughout the entirety of the midsole here. But overall, both of these shoes excel for versatile training, and I really dig both of these shoes' midsoles in regard to the ground feedback they give you when you're doing plyometrics and ballistic style movements. So when it comes to sizing and fit in the Haze trainer and the R.A.D., both of these shoes have a slightly more low profile design, and then in regard to which size you should go with, they should be sized slightly differently. So over here in the Haze trainer, you should be safe going true to size. The length fits true, and this model has a slightly wider toe box. Now what I will say is that the volume of the upper in the toe box might feel a little bit snug when you're breaking these in, so give them a couple of sessions, but they should feel good after that. Just note that the volume in this shoe is a little bit limited. So also if you're using custom inserts or insoles, the Haze trainer might be a little bit limited in the context of how you want your shoe to fit, especially in regard to the overall volume of the upper and the forefoot and midfoot. In the R.A.D., they suggest sizing up on their site, and that being said, I would suggest reaching out to R.A.D. and letting them know what current shoe you're wearing and then the size you're wearing them in. They should be able to give you more direct information in regard to, okay, if you're rocking a whatever size in a Reebok Nano, this is what the R.A.D. should be sized with. I went true to size in this model for continuity purposes for reviews, so I would know exactly like, okay, should I have went up a half size? Should I have went up a full size? And I think going up a half size would have been the right call in this model. Like they fit pretty snug, but they're not overly tight, they're not overly uncomfortable, but I know some folks don't necessarily like having a super snug cross-training shoe. So that being said, I would say play it safe and either go up a half size or full size in the R.A.D., or even double play it safe and reach out to them and ask them about their sizing. All right, so now let's talk on the weight, heel to toe drops, and the insoles in these models. So in the R.A.D. for my size 10 shoe here, we have a weight of 12.7 ounces. This shoe has a 6mm heel to toe drop, and the insole is removable in this shoe. In the Haze trainer, for my size 10 model here, we have a weight of 12.1 ounces. The heel to toe drop in this shoe is 4mm, and then we also have a removable insole. So now let's do a construction side by side of the Haze trainer and the R.A.D. So up here on the toe, we have an extended outsole that wraps up on both models. In the Haze trainer, we do have a slightly thicker wrap versus over here on the R.A.D., and then we also have reinforced materials in the toe for additional durability. So in the R.A.D. we have like the synthetic suede overlay that wraps the entirety of the shoe. I like that for additional durability. It is double stitched. And then over here in the Haze trainer, we have a slightly more rigid material that covers the toe box. Looking at the upper materials themselves. In the R.A.D. we have a synthetic layered material throughout, so the entirety of the shoe has like the suede / synthetic material throughout the entirety of the upper, with some breathability here through the midfoot and forefoot. Looking at the tongue, we do have a perforated tongue and 5 eyelets that wrap up, some R.A.D. branding right here, and then we also have some R.A.D. branding back here imprinted on the lateral heel. And then looking at the Haze trainer, we have a 3D jacquard knit throughout the entirety of the upper of the shoe. We also have a perforated tongue, and then we also have a tongue pouch here, so you could tuck the laces in if you want to tuck the laces while you train. We have 6 core eyelets that go up with a 7th back here for lace locking. We have some strike movement branding here on the tongue, some strike movement branding here on the lateral side towards the upper portion of the midfoot, and then we have some branding back here on the lateral heel. We also have an external pull tab on the Haze trainer. Looking at the midsole construction, we have a Cush 50 midsole that wraps the entirety of the Haze trainer, and then in the R.A.D. we have that swell foam midsole that is enclosed inside this rubber wrap. Looking at the outsole patterning, we have like the zig tread over here on the R.A.D. We have some R.A.D. branding over here on the forefoot and midfoot of the outsole, and then some R.A.D. branding back here on the lateral heel as well. Again, this wraps the entirety of the shoe, so you get a lot of durability perks with that and some additional rope climbing support. In the Haze trainer, we have the cross-platform outsole that they use in this model. It's basically like strike movements, like proprietary outsole construction for giving this shoe like its high level of maneuverability, and it's like 3D wrap to give it a little bit more durability on different surfaces. We have a consistent tread patterning throughout, and then it does differentiate a little bit on the lateral parts of the shoe for additional durability and grip purposes. We also have some strike movement branding down here on the heel. Looking at the insoles, once again, the Haze trainer does have a removable insole. Its insole is a little bit thicker, so it does provide a little bit more comfort for daily wear purposes. And then looking at the R.A.D. we also have a removable insole. This insole is a little bit thinner in nature, has some R.A.D. branding on the internal portion, but overall, those are the biggest construction callouts with these models. I really dig the features that both of these companies are putting into their shoes at the moment. If you have any additional questions on the constructions of the R.A.D. or the Haze trainer, drop a comment down below. All right guys, that wraps up my comparison of the R.A.D. and the Strike Movement Haze trainer. I think both of these shoes are really solid within their own right, and I think there isn't really a clear winner in every single performance category. With the subtle differences between each shoe, I do think there will be certain models that will fit better for certain preferences, wants, and needs, but I don't think you could really go wrong with either of these shoes, and it's really cool to see these smaller companies pushing the cross-training shoe game further. If you have any additional questions on either of these shoes, or which you should go with, or if you're transitioning from like a Nike Metcon to one of these models, which would be best, hit me in the comments below. Let me know whatever you have in regard to questions. You can also reach out to me personally. It's way easier to be more direct with feedback that way too, so whatever you're most comfortable with. But as always guys, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next one.